you've been feeling the call to write a book, it is no accident. Your book is needed in the world, so let's make it happen. I'm Nicola, and this is the Unbound Writers Club. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today I am joined by not one, but 5 magical Unbound writers. Holly McLoughlin, Marna Fujimoto-Pihl, Owen Luckey, Maggie Pierce and Deborah Thornton, who together form the Courageous Hearts Collective. This incredible group of authors have just released permission slips for claiming our emotions, a book which they call an emotional resilience project. So this is a collaborative book, but it's a collaborative book, not maybe in the typical sense of that phrase, because often with a collaborative book, there's a particular theme. Individual authors submit their chapters, which they write on their own, and then they're brought together at the end. With this book, right from the beginning, this group were very passionate, were very certain that this would be a true collaboration. So Holly reached out to me, I think it was late in 2021, to talk about the idea for this book and that she wanted to write it with this group of women that she had come to know through a particular training that they were doing. We'll talk more about that in this conversation. And at first we imagined that this book would be written, I don't know, within a year, 18 months. And now here we are in 2025 because they have allowed themselves to go on this incredible journey as they have been birthing permission slips. So this book invites you to pause, to breathe, and take a radically different approach to life, one where you claim your emotions as trusted allies instead of obstacles to overcome. And really, this group of writers have embodied this every step of the way during their process. So I am very excited to share this conversation with you. It's been a pleasure every time I've come together with this group throughout their process, and I am just beyond excited that their book is making its way into the world now. So without further ado, let's dive in. So, welcome to the Unbound Writers Club, the Courageous Hearts Collective. It's so good to have you here as Permission Slips is beginning to make its magical way into the world. I always begin, or I tend to begin these conversations with the same question or collection of questions. So I'm going to come to Deborah and Owen to ask these first ones, which is, what is it in particular that makes you, I guess individually, but as a collective, Unbound writers? Are there any particular old beliefs that you've liberated yourself from, particularly during this process? What have you done differently as you've been birthing this book?
I want to say, first of all, the book Permission Slips for Claiming Our Emotions that we've written together, we really leaned into the emotions. So that led us to the process of creating the book. And I know that sounds kind of out there, but we kept the form of the book in our mind's eye and then allowed ourselves to create a process essentially as we went along. And it allowed us to share personal stories. It also grew us as writers. And the idea of permission came up during one of our processes. So that was sort of an interesting, I'll never forget the day, actually. I think we all just went, whoa, yeah, that's what we're doing. So, yeah, Deborah, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you, Owen. This is Deborah introducing my voice. And, I have made my living as a writer for decades. Even when it wasn't part of my actual job title or job description, I was the person people came to clean up their writing. But it was cut and dry, proposals and meeting reports and things like that. And so I'm very accustomed to writing to an outline and hitting all those arguments that are going to make that point. And this was not that. This was a completely different experience. And in fact, this experience, I've been telling people that I've been a writer for decades, but this is the first time I've experienced myself as an author. And that kind of links into authority and coming from oneself. And this book was completely unconventional. We did not have an outline. We didn't even know where we were going with the book. And I love the fact early on we met with you and you led us through a guided meditation to meet the book, right? And to me, and we did an Akashic Records session to meet our book and find out what was the book calling forth from us. And there was a huge amount of trust involved in that. It was trusting ourselves, it was trusting each other, and it was giving ourselves permission to listen to the voices that were coming and the writing that wanted to emerge. And it was a stunning experience that, you know, when I've talked to fellow writers, they're kind of dumbstruck by this.
Yeah, I've got chills as you are both describing kind of more about the process and how it's been, and that, you know, journey of trust that you've all been on, and starting from that place of like knowing that you wanted to co-create a book together, but like you say, like not knowing what exactly I wanted to be. So that leads me to the question: how did you first get started with writing the book? And also, I'm curious in hearing more about, you know, why you felt called to write this book as a group. So, Holly and Owen, whoever wants to go first.
I'll join in here. Holly here. It was a really interesting one because we had been on a series of programs. Either we'd all been through them, and there was one on emotional mastery with emotionally fit leaders that we went through together as coaches. And it was really that experience, and as we were going through that process, that I was sat there and I was writing a collective book with yourself, Nicola, the Vision 2020 or 2020 Vision, I forget which way around it is. And I sat there thinking, we have got to do a book about this. And so pretty early on, I think, I put out the invitation to our group on this emotional mastery program to say, does anyone want to write a book about this? And the invitation was really just, wouldn't it be cool to put some really courageous conversations about emotions out there? And I didn't really know why. It was just a yes in my body, and that's very much me. And when I get that feeling, I'm like, let's put it out and see what happens. And amazingly, everyone received the call and said yes. One of our group was already writing a book, so they declined, but the rest of us, the 5 of us, carried on. And Owen, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I guess that the structure started to emerge from that class where we had what we call an emotional check-in, which is something we include in the book throughout as a through line. So the readers will have that experience, and that became really pivotal to our co-creation and structure, our loose structure, I should say. It gave us a place to launch from and also to recover to. And I think that that's important when we're experiencing our emotions and writing about our emotions and creating safety as a group. So, yeah, and there was something that I think being called to express ourselves and share in a really intimate, deep way just was exciting and inviting. And also, we were in COVID. So I just want to highlight that that was another opportunity to be in community and connection and create sort of lifelines across continents here. So, yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I really felt and feel that with you as a group, that sense of community and true collaboration. I just was on Instagram before I came on, just like sharing a story that I was coming on to record this conversation with you. And I think often with collaborative books, like everyone does their own piece and then, you know, it's all put together at the end. But with you know, every step of the way, you've been in this most like deep and powerful collaboration, and the emotional check-in. Like I loved getting to experience that with you, you know, on some of our group calls that we had. So yeah, it's been a really powerful process for me personally as well. So thank you. So I know like all sorts of things can come up during the book writing process, like when we're in an individual book writing process and when we're kind of writing as a group as well, that can bring through different layers of stuff. So I wonder if there's any particular fears, doubts that have come up through this process. I'm going to come to Maggie and Marna, whoever wants to go first with that one.
Yeah, I can speak to that first. I'm Marna here.
Thanks, Marna.
Yeah, certainly the stories we were sharing, really heartfelt, personal stories through this. It felt really important to kind of give the readers a glimpse into what it looks like to be in experience of emotions. So we felt called to write really personal stories. So, of course, alongside with that, we've all gone through feeling some degree of fear around sharing so vulnerably, so personally, often, you know, painful and messy parts of our lives. I know for me, for sure, there was a big fear about people, you know, judging me as unprofessional or not put together or like a mess, you know, emotional mess or something like that. So those are definite fears that we've all worked through. And I know, you know, there's always that doubt of like, should I put this out there? Should I, you know, take it out? So working through that, those fears throughout this whole process. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Maggie?
Yeah, thanks, Marna. You know, some of the things that you're bringing up, the doubts and the fears and the vulnerability and all those things that we went through, and what I noticed was, you know, we each tapped on it, whether whether we spoke of it or not. We were all in the same soup mix, so to speak. But you know, for me personally too, it was the writing skills. I had never really had anything that was put into a format of writing like this. And so really to put myself into the position where I was going to be a writer along with others who have had that, maybe the skill that they have had, or maybe they hadn't had, but we were all in a place that we really, you know, for me, I had never written. And back in high school, I didn't do English composition so well. So it was like really overcoming a lot of different obstacles. But what I loved about what kind of emerged for me was it was because we were tapping into our emotions and our feelings. It was more like it just had a conversational rawness to it at times. So it didn't have to comply with all the English composition structure that I'd grown up with or that I thought was supposed to be what a writer was supposed to do. So yeah, facing a skill level, and like the book tends to reflect, is that we have different parts. We have our little child in us, our adolescent, and all those different parts that kind of play into it. So feeling into that little one for me, who was challenged at school at times, and you know, and trying to do this writing and moving with her and holding her in the presence while I was writing, you know, the adolescent that, you know, didn't fit in and all those things. So we all tended to incorporate where we were with such, I feel, such raw vulnerability and a skill level that was there though too, like an inner wisdom that was also accompanying the process.
Yeah, beautiful. It's so interesting, Maggie, as you share that, like about like feeling maybe you didn't have those skills as a writer, because as soon as I read like the first piece of your writing that I got to read through, like it was so compelling and engaging. So it's so interesting how we can be in judgment of ourselves and that, oh, I don't know how to do this, you know, because maybe we haven't had that experience of doing it in the way we were told we should when we were at school. I love your style as a writer. So just wanted to share that. And also, as you were talking there, it reminded me, like during our sessions, each of you, like talking about the little one within. And, you know, I've done inner child work and that kind of thing, but that's really stayed with me and helped me to create more of a connection with my little one. So thank you all for that as well. I mean, is there anything else in terms of any fears or doubts? Was there anything in particular that you did to help you move through those? And again, I'll come to Maggie and Marna, but if anyone else wants to offer something around that, you can feel free.
To jump in a bit on that, because it's kind of what Owen spoke about. Each one of our calls or in our process, we were always doing emotional check-ins. So that it became that powerful tool for us to be able to witness ourselves and witness others and be witnessed, to hold the emotions and the doubts and the fears that were there. So it was almost like we were working ourselves in the process of working this. So there was always that. And I think there's something about that's kind of compelling about the nurturing voice that started coming more and more apparent for us, that in these different doubts and fears and things that sabotage or constrict ourselves and our writing, there's always, you know, whether it's the wise one or whether it's the nurturing part of us or whatever, was able to be tapped in more and more as we strengthened our own muscle with that and helped each other do that too. So it was a process that was quite unique to have everyone supporting one another as we went through it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah.
Echo the self-compassion, that cultivating self-compassion was so huge to this process, especially when we're being called to be visible in so many different ways, right? Having that compassionate, nurturing presence was really key. And I know also another thing that really has helped all of us through this, me in particular, has been this deep passion, this well of passion that we all feel for getting this work out there, like helping people see what emotions can do for us, the power that they hold for us, and helping people see that they're not alone, that they can share their emotional truth, and it might be messy and that's okay, and having that compassion and for our humanity with that. Yeah, that I think has been a really big process for us to keep coming back, showing up, because we believe so strongly in breaking the cycle of having people have to self-manage so much with our emotions. We really want to show people what's possible.
Beautiful. So important to kind of keep tapping back into, like, the reason why you made the decision to write the book. Love that. Thanks, Marna. I'm going to come to Deborah and then Holly as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that during our writing sessions, and we did this all by Zoom, right? The entire process has been by Zoom. We never have met in person. I have met Maggie in previous retreats related to different training programs, but the five of us have never met in person. And even our writing retreats, we would stay on Zoom, turn off the camera, turn off the mics, and then come back. And after a writing period, we would come back and we would open up the floor if someone wanted to share what had come up for them. And after the person shared, we would then, share our reflections. And primarily it was, what were the emotions that were coming up, right? What were we hearing? We also gave space for the writer to say, this is what I want, this is what I need. So we held each other through that. And even during some of the sessions when we would do the check-in and we had an agenda of what we thought we were going to accomplish, sometimes the check-in was how we spent the 2 hours, because something came up for someone that was more important than having a writing session. And so that we created that nurturing atmosphere for each other. And we also then sometimes had time to write reflections to what someone had written. Some of those did get incorporated into the book, Others are just really love notes to each other that aren't on the pages of the book, but they're in our hearts.
Beautiful. Love that. I love that so much. So, so supportive. Yeah. Thank you, Deborah. Holly, I think you had something you wanted to add as well.
Yeah. You know, I want to touch on the word that you used earlier, Nicola, which was collaboration. And one of my intentions when I invited everybody, you know, hey, come on, can we do this book? Was I really wanted it to be quite integrated. I wanted that deeper level of collaboration. And I think one of the things that's emerged from the way that we worked is I personally, and I think others would echo this, learned a whole new way of leading and creating. And that new way, you know, we talk about this emotional check-in. For anyone that's wondering what that is, it's really a simple process of what emotions have you been feeling in the last 24 hours and naming those emotions together. And sometimes we would inquire deeper if someone gave permission for that. But I think in order to collaborate effectively, it takes an understanding of where people are at emotionally. And by doing that emotional check-in at the start of every time that we met, it kind of gave us a view of the dynamics going on in the group so that we could navigate more effectively and more compassionately. And we could, you know, there's been times where we've all been at different stages in the process. And I think typically whenever I've collaborated, there's this feeling of anxiety that I have to keep up with where everyone's at and I have to perform and, you know, deliver as desired. And we kind of threw that out the window in this group. And it has meant the book took us longer, but it also meant we got this much richer, more integrated result in a way that was really honouring where everyone was at within themselves and not kind of forcing anyone to be sharing with their network or doing this or that. You know, there's been times when we've said, actually, I can do that, but it's fine if you don't. And we've allowed for that diversity to be present. And I think that's what's been so magical about the way that we've worked together. And there's almost like another book brewing in terms of how do you do that, right?
That's what I was just thinking.
I think I'd call it creative leadership or something like that. I'm not sure. Owen's probably got a better word than me. But yeah, it's been a process that's worked us.
Yeah. Which, you know, writing a book, it always does, or, you know, there's always that potential. But the way that you have been on this journey together and trusted each other and the journey and the book that wanted to come through, like all those different layers, is, you know, it's just been incredible to
we've been fully in the frustration, the
yeah.
doubt, oh my God, give me structure moments, you know. We've actually had to be, you know, really present with that and witness that in each other and allow it to be there without trying to change it. And you know, part of our ethos is really that it's in being present to everything that we're feeling and allowing it to be there that we move through. It's not by doing something with it. And I think that's why, you know, one of the power of naming your emotions in a group is it gives you this sense of, I'm allowed. It's that permission slip. It's like, oh, okay, like I can show up in the mess and I'm going to be safe and I'm going to be held. And, you know, even as we take the book out into the world, you know, those feelings come up for all of us. And we have this blessing of having a group to hold that, but it's a practice.
Yeah. Like you say, another book potentially could be written about the process. It could be a book, a program, all sorts of things. But, you know, we'll let this one be first. And it's so interesting to have this conversation with you. Now we're at this point where Permission Slips is making its way into the world. And I know there'll be people listening who are either, you know, maybe in the book writing process at the moment and maybe experience some of the fear, frustration that you've spoken to during this conversation, or they're thinking about writing the book, they're feeling the call, but, you know, they're not quite sure what their first step might be. So I'd love to hear from each of you. If you were going to give one piece of advice to somebody who is earlier on in the book writing journey or thinking about embarking upon it, what would you say? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Thanks,
It's
Owen.
Owen. I would lean into the call, and I would find a group or a friend or a coach or a mentor to witness you. I think it cannot be done in a vacuum. And I feel like that's what I learned here particularly, was that, yeah, the call was greater than my fear of writing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's like a mic drop moment. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
Go ahead, Marna.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say I echo that 100%, Owen. That call being greater than the writing, and I think for me one of the biggest shifts was around trusting the process of writing, like just getting it all out there onto the page without trying to edit or think of the future audience or how it's going to be used, but just kind of getting that truth or whatever it is that you are, the message out there, and trusting that it will find its way, it will emerge. I think that was huge for me.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, and what came up for me is a willingness to not know, right? A willingness to just be with the mystery and give it space to emerge. And, we've talked a little bit about the structure of the book. We just kept writing and throwing things into a Google document. And when it got to be over 100 pages, we said, maybe we should see what we have here. And Owen printed it out and laid it up on the floor of her studio and then put it together in a sequence. And I think, Marna, you worked, anyway, we had a draft sequence. And once we sort of got with that, then we said, okay, we'll send it over to you for that actually helped us find some pieces that were missing. So we wrote those in. And then we said, all right, let's send it in right to you and then also to Anna for copy editing. And in September, we had the copy edited version and I was going to share it with everyone. But wait, there were some other ideas that kept coming up. So we reorganized it. And then the file got lost. And it became corrupted. We had to recreate it. And through all of those iterations, I sort of see it like a kaleidoscope. The pieces were the same, but they kept rearranging in creating different patterns, right? And at a certain point, we did say, this is it. This is what we're going with. But, we could have kept rearranging it even further. And so I think all of that speaks to just trust, right? Let what is wanting to come forth, let it emerge, and then sit back and say, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And trust it.
Yeah. It's a big theme, isn't it? That trust piece. Thanks, Deborah.
Okay.
Thanks, Maggie.
Yeah, I would suggest for anyone who's thinking of writing or in a process of it or something of that sort is to realize that this is something bigger than yourself. I can't imagine that most books aren't that, and probably are, once you get through it to a certain point, that there's more to it than just the fact that you're holding a book in your hand. There's just such I'll call it a soul's invitation that's there, that is, at least, what I noticed was writing became my friend. And now it's one of those things that I just can't go a day without writing, whatever form that is, but that it becomes a process that is really so, I think, probably ancestral, has within us, that we're transferring things from one to another and writing it down and, really having a witness of ourselves in that writing. And I agree with what Owen said, is to do it on your own. Boy, that feels like torture to me. I know that people can do it, but having a coach, having an encouragement, having someone that has the accountability, have someone there with you that can witness and be a part of the journey, if not, whether it's collaborative too, is such an amazing process. And also in it, I say that not only a soul's invitation, I think it's a calling for growth and transformation, because like you said, it will work you. And it's it's maybe therapy in a way, but it definitely has its own energy. And I would use, for me, what I found in the process was, in the words of the 4 agreements, but being impeccable with your words. Not to start that way, but really let things flow, but then look at the words that you're using, the influence of those words, the resonance of those words, I think has a lot of power to it too.
Love that point. Thanks, Maggie. Thank you. Holly, what would you say?
It's so hard to pick just one, Nicola.
I know. I mean, we're unbound, so.
I may have to sneak 2 in. One is, I think there's so much, and I'm going to use the word intentionally here. I think there's a lot of trauma around writing from education. I think that, for me as a young child, I used to sit in the attic with an old typewriter, and I'd love that pingy sound and the clattering of the things. And I would write stories, right? And somewhere along the way, that young part of me, that kind of essence of me, got squished down by school, and I learned languages were not my thing. So I built up all these beliefs, right, around why I wasn't a writer. So it was kind of weird to be inviting everyone into writing a book. And I've definitely leaned into kind of the grammar and spelling side of things with Deborah and others and Marna and others in the group. But don't let that put you off, is what I would say, number one. Like, I found out in my mid-30s that I'm dyslexic, and all of a sudden it was like, ping, oh, that's why language was hard for me, because I have this incredible visual world and felt sense of the world, and that's how I move through it, not with language necessarily, at least not written language. And particularly with my form of dyslexia, it's about symbols, so it's really hard to translate what I see in my head and what I feel in my body into the written symbols of language as letters on a page, whereas I can speak it. So there was times when I would go for a walk and I would speak into my phone, and then I wouldn't necessarily transcribe that, but I would be like, oh, that's what I'm trying to say, and I'd hear myself, and then I could write about it. So find your own process with it. But I think the one message of our book overall, and this is the sneaky second one that I'm going to pop in here, is I think there's times when you come to write, or you set your time to write, and the fears, the beliefs, the old patterns come up inevitably. And if you're ever stuck for where to start, I would say name the emotion you're feeling in that moment. Just pull up a list of emotions on the internet. There's one on our website if anyone wants one, on courageous-hearts.com. You can look at an amazing graphic that Deborah put together, and just start with, what's the one or handful of those feelings that are present right now, and write about them. And through that, going through it, what you want to say will emerge. And we're also going to be putting out there, we're putting a bit of a wait list or a sign-up list together. So if anybody does want to come and learn that emotional check-in process with us, we would love to kind of hear from people who might be interested in joining us in that, because we just found it such an amazing tool for both writing, but also for collaborating in a really fair and unbound way. And so all of that's on our website at the moment. And we'd love to hear from people that want to connect with us over that.
Oh, amazing. You've just answered the question that I was going to ask, Holly, which is like, what's the best way for people to connect with you who are listening to this? So do you want to just say the website, the web address again? We will make sure it's in the show notes as well.
Sure. So it's courageous-hearts.com. Courageous-hearts.com.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And obviously people can get their copy of Permission Slips from whichever online bookseller they prefer. I'm excited to see what this leads to. It's been an honor, a joy, like all the things, to hold space for your journey, to see it unfold, and you, each of you, trusting the unfolding. Maybe not every single moment of it, because I know at times we're like, come on. But yeah, the book is so rich, and your process has been so rich. It's been very inspiring to witness. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, Nicola. And
Thank you, Nicola.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicola.
Oh, you're welcome.